It's week 6 of the NFL season. Boy, I'll tell you, this goes by quicker and quicker every year. I'm Johnny Montalbano. That's Nick Morgasen. Nick, good to see you.
Hey, it's great to have a voice again.
Absolutely. I know Nick's been down the last couple of weeks. It's funny. Maybe something along the lines here in the Empty the Bench podcast network, we're all losing our voices. I lost mine a couple of weeks ago because of allergies. And I know, Nick, you've been battling some stuff, but it's good to have you back on. And Nick's here to do the picks with me today. Don't worry, we do have Hank Indictor's picks as well. I think Hank and I are both the AFC South version of NFL picks this year because we are both kind of struggling a little bit, both under 500 through the first 5 weeks. But it's just been that kind of year, Nick, with a lot of close games, a lot of teams that are not covering. I'm kind of going along those trends this week with these picks, and we'll see what we could do. But unfortunately, we're both behind the 8 ball to start this week because we both took Chicago, and I'm an idiot because on Empty the Bench, I took the Commanders, and then I decided during my during the Sports Minute and before the game started to say, all right, for our official pick here on Game On to take the Bears, and that was a dud. So 0-1 to start, and last week, again, another under 500 week for both of us. I went 7-8-1, and Hank went 5-10-1. So for the year so far, I am 35-42-3, and Hank is 34-43-3. And again, it's been one of those years, Nick. We've got 3 ties already in the first 5 weeks.
I mean, before we get into it, that game was brutal. Like, you couldn't pay us to watch that game on Prime Video.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to be doing much breaking down of that on episode 29 next week for sure. I feel bad for Al, Kirk, and Kaylee having to be there for 2 straight weeks of this stuff.
And by the way, I love how people were going on a tangent on social media saying, is Al going to bring it up? Is Al going to bring up the whole Daniel Snyder situation? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's news. And that is something we'll also get to on both of our shows next week. But as far as our picks go this week, again, lines very, very interesting. Could steer you one way or another. But I have a couple of upset specials, a couple of half upset specials. It's going to be that kind of week. So let's see what Week 6 has in store for us. I know for both of our favorite teams that we root for, your Jets, my Giants, both good games. See if the momentum for both of them can continue. And as far as the games itself, well, let's get into it, folks. And we get it going with a Noah Eagle, Mark Schlereth, Christina Pink special on the NFL on Fox. It is the San Francisco 49ers. They stayed on the East Coast, and they take on a sneaky team in the Atlanta Falcons. The 49ers, Nick, are laying 5 points in this matchup.
Well, starting this way right off the bat, this actually was my lock of the week. The Niners, ever since they put Jimmy G back in the mix, it seems like the chemistry is there. I'm sure we're going to talk about chemistry when we get to the Cowboys-Eagles game eventually down the line, because everyone's talking about that chemistry. But the Falcons are the Falcons. Now, I know you've said they're sneaky, but I'm going to stick with Jimmy G, and this is my lock for the Niners to cover.
Why I say they're sneaky is because they are only 2 teams in the last decade have started 6-0 or better against the spread, and the Falcons, who I said before the year were the worst team in football, have to be fair. They've been in almost every game. They've been in every game pretty much for this year. But I look at this matchup, Nick, and the matchup to watch for me, it's Atlanta's 3rd-ranked rushing offense against this Niners' top-ranked rushing defense. But you don't have Cordell Patterson there. Kyle Pitts, unsure about what his situation is going to be at the tight end position. So Cordell Patterson, who was 3rd in the NFL in rushing before his injury, and now the Falcons have had to resort to an inexperienced combination of Alliger, Caleb Huntley, and Avery Williams. The 49ers have allowed the 3rd fewest passing yards in the league. We know about how great their defense is. The Falcons have thrown for the 3rd fewest with Marcus Mariota there. Now, 49ers, they are dealing with some key defenders. And again, as I said, Atlanta remains the only team undefeated against the spread. And I feel like this has the makings of a Falcons cover, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take the 49ers to win and cover down in Atlanta in game number 1 on Sunday. And Hank is also going to take the 49ers to win and cover in game number 1. But you know what? As I said, Falcons have been in every game. Wouldn't be surprised if they keep this one close. But I think we all do agree that the 49ers are going to win this game. Question is, will they cover the 5-point spread in game number 1. It's a Kevin Harlan, Trent Green, and Melanie Collins special on the NFL on CBS. New England Patriots go to Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns are laying 2.5.
Yeah, and I was saying to Johnny before we started, and you've said this many times over the last couple of weeks, Vegas likes to trick you with lines where they're like, all right, if we make it enticing enough, maybe you'll take Cleveland down in Cleveland. But at the same time, you have a Zappy at your quarterback, your third-string quarterback. I was kind of up in arms. I was like, all right, and I'm agreeing with you finally that the Patriots look bad. They just... Without Mac Jones, they were struggling with Mac Jones already because they were not scoring. Now they don't have Mac Jones. That makes everything tougher. I chose the Browns to cover, but this is an ugly game all around.
I think this game could actually be the highest scoring game of the week when you look at it, because both teams, we know the Browns love to run the ball. But think about it from this perspective, Nick. It's 2022 and the Browns are favored over the New England Patriots.
I know.
And the Browns, and I think one of the reasons why they're favored is the Patriots are still going with a third-string quarterback in Bailey Zappi, and I know they did blow out the Lions, but are they getting a decent amount of respect on this line, or is it that the Browns aren't getting any respect? That would be the question, and I don't think, and I think I'm agreeing with you in saying this, New England hasn't really fixed everything just because they blew out the Lions last week. The stat you would look at, if you're looking at stats, the Patriots are 8-2 against the Browns since Belichick became the head coach there. But I just don't trust Zappy on the road in this spot. And the fact that this line has come down 0.5 point helps because it was at 3. And I'm going to go with the Browns. But I do think it's going to be one of the highest scoring games of week number 6. And Hank's also going to take the Browns to win and cover as well.
The one thing about the game last week, the Lions didn't have Brown last week. So that obviously was going to make it easier for the Patriots to compete. If the Lions had Brown last week, maybe that game is more competitive on the Lions' point of view.
Yeah, Lions have been dealing with some injuries. Brown's been out, Swift, their running back's been out. They've had some offensive line injuries as well, and maybe this is a good time for them to have their bye week to hopefully get those guys back, because they've been a fun team in the early going. Just last week was just a complete dud all the way around, but New England finding a way to do it. I just don't think they can do it in this spot against Brissett and the Browns. Well, Nick, it's your game, and look who we've got. It's a Kevin Burkhardt, Greg Olsen, Aaron Andrews, Tom Rinaldi special on the NFL on Fox as your New York Jets travel to Lambeau Field to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, and the Packers are favored by 7.5.
Now, I'm going to steal your line right here. This was my upset special, believe it or not. Okay, so when you guys did the line on Empty the Bench, I think it was 7. Now it's 7.5. Yeah. That doesn't really change anything for me. A half point doesn't really make much difference. I think the Jets are going to cover it. I think they're going to win this game against the Packers. Aaron Rodgers has not looked good. First of all, he's got to stay out of the media. He's throwing everybody under the bus, including his own coach. He's not happy with his wide receivers who are inexperienced. I don't blame him on that front, but they're inexperienced. They're going to make mistakes. Alan Lazard's got to step up and really take this number 1 wide receiver spot by storm. They have one of the better runners in the game, obviously, but I was just shocked that they lost in London after the way they played in the first half against the Giants. I really thought they were going to win that game. And I think the Jets coming in hot, I guess if that's what you want to call it, winning 2 straight, being in first place for the first time in God knows how long. I can't believe I'm saying this. Upset special. The Jets win.
Nice. I like your thoughts. Now, I will say we've been talking about lines so far throughout, and this to me is a line that Vegas is begging you to take the Jets here, and I'm going to take the Jets with the points, and here's why. The Packers have scored 7 or fewer points in the second half in 4 of their 5 games. The Jets have scored 61 points combined in the second half this year. And to me, the Packers just don't have the ability right now to blow out opponents. And the Jets are playing with a lot of confidence. And I'm not going to go reach and say that Zach Wilson's going to outplay Aaron Rodgers in this spot, or that the Jets
I wouldn't say that either.
No, and I know Rodgers is dealing with a thumb injury, and some of his throws last week in London against my Giants looked awful. But I'm I'm not going to say that he's going to do that, but I am going to take the Jets running back duo and Breece Hall and Michael Carter to outrush the Packers tandem of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and I think they're going to keep it close. Would it surprise me if they beat the Packers? No, because I think they're getting them at a good time, but the game is in Lambeau. I think it'll be close, so in that regard, I don't know if I'm going to take the Jets in an upset special totally, but I will grab the 7.5, and especially since I got an extra half a point from Empty the Bench on Wednesday, I will take the Jets plus 7.5 as well. And also, every time I've taken the Jets with the points, they've won.
Which is crazy to think about. At the same time, the other issue you have with Aaron Rodgers, he's been rushed, I think, the most in the NFL this year, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to his offensive line not protecting him. We all used to yell when Tom Brady had his issues with his offensive line, and he would complain, and he still managed to make the throws. When Aaron Rodgers is rushed, he looks like a different quarterback under center. So I would watch that with the Jets defense that's halfway decent.
Absolutely, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm looking at like maybe 24-20, something along those lines. But Jets are playing with confidence right now. I would not be surprised if they go there and make this a very, very interesting game at Lambeau. Hanks disagrees with us, though. He is going to take the Packers with the laying the 7.5 in at Lambeau Field, and we'll find out. It's Andrew Catalon, James Lofton, and Amanda Renner on the NFL on CBS. AFC South matchup, the Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Indianapolis to take on the Colts, with the Colts favored by 2.
See, Vegas is confusing me this week. And we're going to see a lot of weird lines coming up over the next couple minutes. This line is completely messed up. The Colts have been one of the worst teams and probably one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL. Everyone thought that Matt Ryan was going to come and really make this team play better. Jonathan Taylor has kind of been a downer after having one of the best rushing seasons in the NFL. The Jaguars look way better than we thought, leading that AFC South division. But like you said, it might take 7 wins to win that division, so that's not saying much. This line is messed up. The Jaguars are going to I'm taking the Jaguars plus 2.
Yeah, Jaguars are the better team in this spot, and you said it. One of the reasons why I think the Colts have been struggling, Jonathan Taylor's not been healthy. He's been dealing with a bum ankle for a few weeks now. So I know Jacksonville's had a couple of bad losses. I mean, that game against Houston last week, even though they played all right, was not good. They were the better team against Washington, even though they didn't win that game. So they are improving in some ways. But you look at this matchup as well, you take the team with the better coach and the better quarterback. Give me Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence, and the Jacksonville Jaguars in an upset special here at Indianapolis. And
I think this was the easiest. This was the easiest upset to pick of this week, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's almost a pick 'em if you look at it like you like to say, but I will take Jacksonville here. I like them a lot. I know I've gone against them a few times this year, but this is a spot I think they can. And especially, look, they only scored 6 points last week. You've got to think that they're going to bounce back here in a way. I think this is a good spot for them as well. Now, again, it's Jekyll and Hyde here because when the game's in Jacksonville, they dominate the Colts. It seems to be in this rivalry. It's a little bit different in Indianapolis, but I'm just looking at the talent level also on these two teams. And to me, Jacksonville is better. And Hank, who's been on the Jacksonville train in a couple of these picks early on this year, is also taking Jacksonville plus the 2. So a 3-way upset special in Indianapolis. It's a Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, and Shannon Spake special on the NFL on Fox as Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings travel to Miami to take on Skylar Thompson and the Miami Dolphins. Vikings are a 3-point favorite on the road.
This game is ugly, and not because of the whole team around these quarterbacks. It's quarterbacks. It's an ugly situation. In my opinion, I would tell all bettors this is a X. I would stay away from this game, gambling on it. If I had to make a choice, first of all, you have no Tua. That puts the Dolphins behind the 8 ball right away. Now, I know they have Waddle and I know they have Hill, but when you have an inexperienced quarterback, the chemistry and the game is not there. Jefferson looked better. He really needs to pick up his performance with Minnesota. It looks like he just came out of the gates struggling, not catching footballs. So I'm torn, but I'm going to stay with the Vikings to cover, but I think it's going to be barely.
There are other injuries besides Tua with the Dolphins, and the good news is, if you saw this week, it looks like he is improving. It may not be out of the realm of the possibility that Tua's back within the next week or so, which is great to see. But yeah, there's definitely a big drop off when you go down from Tua to Bridgewater to Thompson, and the injuries the Dolphins are also dealing with as well are a big deal. But like I said on Empty the Bench on Wednesday, let's do it. Let's do a checklist here, Nick, real quick. Is this game in prime time? No, it's an early game. It's not nationally televised. You go with Kirk Cousins. Give me the Vikings laying the 3 in this one.
I forgot about that.
Hank will also grab Minnesota -3 down there in Miami. Greg Gumbel, Adam Archuleta, AJ Ross on the NFL on CBS. Cincinnati Bengals go to New Orleans, take on the Saints with Cincinnati favorites by 2.
I mean, the Saints are injury rattled. That's right off the bat. We know that. The Bengals I'm not happy with so far this year. Talk about a team that's kind of been a little up and down, disappointing. Burrow looks, what would you say? I grade him as a C, basically, at this point of the season. He's throwing a lot of picks. He's fumbling the football a lot. Jamar Chase, what's going on with Jamar Chase? That's a confusing situation. But the Saints are worse. Their quarterback situation, it was announced today that Adam Schefter said that Andy Dalton is going to be getting the start. It's about time. I think Jameis Winston is trying to play hero ball, and it didn't work out. I don't think it really matters. As much as I want to disrespect the Bengals, you got to take them to cover.
I wonder besides Winston being hurt, and I know they got Taysom Hill too, I wonder if this is more of a matchup ploy, why they would start Dalton in this spot against his foreign team there in Cincinnati. But Nick, you said it at the top there. Saints are banged up big time. They're very short on receivers. The weird thing is this is just how we can't predict this sport or any sports in general. Why we think we can. They go play there in London 2 weeks ago, and then they come back, no bye week. They come back the next week. They put up 39 points. It's just wild, and I feel like Dalton's a little bit of an upgrade because he's healthier. I feel like the injury that Winston had was actually really hurting them, no pun intended, in terms of how they could do offensively. But they're really short on receivers. The Bengals, I think, are really desperate. I know they've been close in a lot of these games. They were very close on Sunday against the Ravens. So they have the ability, and it's funny because you said it too, what's happened with Burrow, but I feel like it's a little bit of a hangover with Burrow and even with Matthew Stafford, and they both didn't play in the preseason. And maybe it's just going to take them a little bit of time to get things going here. But I'm going to take the team with the more complement of receivers and talent, and that is the Bengals. And it's a small line, so if they can win by a field goal, that's good enough for me. So Cincinnati -2 is the play here at New Orleans, and Hank will also grab the 2 with Cincinnati to win and cover in this one. And then it gets to my game. And this is going to be a fun one. Baltimore Ravens and New York Giants with Ian Eagle, Charles Davis, and Evan Washburn on the NFL on CBS. The Wink Martindale revenge game, you could say. Ravens, though, 5.5-point favorites in this one. And Nick, let me go first here since I'm the Giant fan. I feel like since Martindale knows this Ravens team, it should help. But here's a stat when I did my research for this game that kind of scares me a bit. Lamar Jackson, he's averaged 7.9 yards per attempt with 7 scores and 1 pick against the blitz, and that's something that Martindale loves to do. We know we know it's helped with the Giants, and that's really what all the Giants defense has. But Giants, like the Jets, they do have confidence. They're at home, and it's not like the Ravens defense is something to write home about. I don't think the Giants win. I do think they keep it close, though. I'm going to grab the 5.5 points with my New York Football Giants. Let's say Ravens 27-23 in this one.
Now, I think this is a classic trap game coming off of London. I thought the rules were originally when you went to London, you were supposed to have the week off, but I guess they changed that rule. But
yeah, because we don't have our bye week for another couple of weeks because we still got to play Jacksonville and Seattle coming up too.
And like you said, the momentum is on the Giants' side. They're playing good football, but eventually they're going to have to lose a game at some point. I hate saying that, and I know Giants fans don't want to hear that, but they're playing way better football than even I expected them to play early on. Lamar Jackson is a scary quarterback. they have problems with mobile quarterbacks. That's not just this season. Historically, they've had a problem with mobile quarterbacks. So unless they can keep him from being mobile, I don't think they win this game. So I think the Ravens cover.
Okay, that's fair. I think they keep it close, but I think the matchup's not favorable. Now, I did say the Packers were going to win last week, and we all know how that turned out. But we'll find out. Game being at home, it's going to be a loud place. I mean, this is the most exciting the Giants have been in quite some time. Eventually, there's going to be a letdown at some point. But again, if just continue to look good. That's really what all comes down to. I mean, you look at the team. I mean, defensively, they haven't even been fully healthy defensively. They've been great. They won the game with Daniel Jones, who played probably his best game in quite some time. He's limiting the mistakes. They're getting production from all the receivers, despite the fact that they're lacking a lot. When Saquon Barkley got hurt, you brought in your second and third string running backs. They got the job done. That's the success of a good team. Now, again, I'm not saying the Giants are a good team, but right now, I mean, they've got it going. I don't know if they get this one done, but I do think they keep it close. Hank agrees with me too. He does have the Giants plus 5.5. I got to check here and just double check and see. I don't think he took them fully in an upset, but
the other thing also is Daniel Jones actually used his legs last week in London. I was surprised to watch him actually pick up a few first downs. I was waiting to see because I know he has that ankle injury. Was he going to test the leg? And I'm like, nah, he might get afraid. And I'm like, whoa, he actually picked up a few first downs with his own 2 feet.
He limited mistakes. He did a lot there. Now, of course, going on that turf at MetLife Stadium, you're scared if he's going to do that there. But yeah, he put a lot of the doubters aside for at least 1 week there in London last week. I mean, he did a lot of good things, and he has limited turnovers and limited the mistakes, especially from those first 2 weeks. He has definitely improved here these last couple of weeks. So all those people that want Jones or think that he's the answer have definitely been right the last couple of weeks. But again, we still got a ways to go here. We'll see what happens at MetLife Stadium between the Ravens and the Giants. It is a Brandon Gaudin, Daryl Moose Johnson, Pam Oliver special on the NFL on Fox. It's Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to Aquashore Stadium to take on Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Another big line here for the Bucs, Nick. They are laying 8.5 on the road.
Now, again, this goes back to what you said earlier. Could this be Vegas trying to trick you into a line of saying, hey, well, the Buccaneers will win by 9 easy, no problem. You have the Kenny Pickett experience in Pittsburgh. You have an injury with, why am I forgetting the defensive guy's name who just went down with the injury for Pittsburgh?
TJ Watt still out.
TJ Watt still out. It's tempting. It's a big line. The Steelers, Pickett's going to make some mistakes. He threw quite a few picks against the Jets. I think you have to take them to cover just because Pittsburgh is in a tough struggle mode situation right now. So I would take them to cover.
This reminds me a little bit of last week because the Bucs were the much better team on paper against the Falcons. They were 10-point favorites. They were up 21-0, and they didn't cover. I mean, it's just been that kind of year, and it's kind of similar in that regard. Now you're going on the road to Pittsburgh. The thing, though, is here's what kind of scares me with the Bucs. It's a lot of points for them to lay with being banged up in so many areas, and now you've got the secondary that's the latest. So I could see Kenny Pickett maybe trying to make a couple of deep throws early on here, especially at home, try and rile up the crowd. And I kind of said this last week, but I'm going to go back to the well again. Steelers are so talent efficient that the only play in this spot can be Tampa Bay. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay minus 8.5 against Pittsburgh, and so will Hank. He will also grab the Bucs minus 8.5. And definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, call me insane, but then again, 35, 42.
Hey, that's one of my favorite sayings.
And that's what I'm doing. So Bucs minus 8.5 at Aquashore Stadium against the Steelers to wrap up the early window. We head out west to SoFi Stadium. It's the Carolina Panthers and Los Angeles Rams. It's Kevin Kugler, Mark Sanchez, and Laura Oakman on the NFL on Fox. It's Steve Wilkes and PJ Walker. It's the Steve Wilkes and PJ Walker led Carolina Panthers. They are getting 10 points against the Rams.
Yeah, this line is kind of ridiculous. I mean, the Rams, who have gone to struggle town the last couple of weeks, Matt Stafford looks like a shell of himself from the Super Bowl season from last year. The elbow injuries, he can't throw the football. He's only throwing to Cooper Kupp, which everyone is pointing out. Allen Robinson's a joke. No one's throwing to him. And Van Jefferson is out. So who are his weapons? He's got no weapons. But the line is so insane. And I look at the other side of the football and I see PJ Walker starting over Baker Mayfield. I don't know what to expect. So the line is big, but at the same time, I don't think it matters if it's PJ Walker or it's Baker Mayfield. I think the Panthers are a struggle. And also hearing the rumors that McCaffrey might be on the block, possibly to be traded. So I don't think this team is really thinking about football for this year. So after all that processing, I think they will cover that 10 points.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rumors. McCaffrey to the Bills has been rumored. DJ Moore is out there. The problem with McCaffrey is his contract is going to make it very difficult to try and trade him. DJ Moore, I think, is more likely that he could get dealt.
I heard the Giants.
Well, the Giants don't really. So I went and looked back the other day on that, and I think the Giants don't really have the salary cap that they can do that. They would have to try and match that up. But let's also remember one thing too: the Giants are still, and we have to really put this in perspective. The Giants are still in rebuild mode. I know they're 4-1. I know they've looked great, but you still have to look at the big picture with the Giants here, and that this is still a transitional year. You can go out and do that next year if you want, but you can't do that right now. I mean, it'd be nice, and maybe they could, but I just don't see it happening because I think you got to ride with what you have right now if you are the Giants. But DJ Moore getting possibly dealt, I think, is certainly a possibility there for Carolina. Now, as far as this game, look, Steve Wilkes and PJ Walker, I'm going to put it out there. By accident, they have to be better than what Matt Rule and Baker Mayfield are. Again, I put the stat out there. Mayfield's among the worst, if not the worst, in completion percentage this year. So by accident, PJ Walker's got to play better. But, Nick, you said it also, too. Why the heck are the Rams this big of a favorite? I mean, they are a mess. And, yeah, I think the Rams are going to win this game, but are they going to win by more than 2 scores? There's no way. I said this on Empty the Bench on Wednesday, too. This is one of my better bets of the week. I'm taking Carolina getting points here. And on Empty the Bench, they were getting 8.5. Now it's 10. I'll grab the 10 with Carolina. Rams win. Panthers, though, do cover in this spot. But Hank is going to take the Rams getting 10 points as well, so he agrees with you.
I just think the Panthers are a dumpster fire. I believe it or not, like when people said they were looking at the Texans or the Falcons, I think the Panthers are starting to get down to that level if you look at them.
You know what? The Texans and the Falcons have been at least competitive. Carolina has not been competitive. Their one win was against a totally banged up Saints team. But
and that's not saying much.
No, it's not. They have looked awful, and I'll tell you who else looks awful? Me. Because I said Carolina could win 8 games this year.
Oof.
Oops.
Hey, it happens.
It happens, but I'm gonna go to them this week to at least try and maybe get a backdoor cover. Even is that asking for much against the Rams team that's a mess right now, and no Cam Akers to kick if it's a close game?
I don't know what this is a flip of the coin game. As weird as that sounds for a 10-point spread, this is almost a flip of the coin game.
Well, remember they were 10-point favorites against the Falcons earlier this year, and they did not cover against the Falcons. That just speaks to how Atlanta's been and how they've been in every game through the first 5 weeks. But the play here for me is Carolina plus 10 at SoFi Stadium. It's Chris Myers, Robert Smith, and Jen Hale on the NFL on Fox. The Arizona Cardinals against the Seattle Seahawks. That 12th man could play a factor in this one. The Cardinals are a 2-point favorite.
Again, I think Vegas screwed this one up. I don't know what they're looking at with the Cardinals. The Cardinals have kind of been an up and down. It's almost like a stock on the stock market. They're great one week, then they're down another week. And why are we sleeping on the Seahawks? I think the Seahawks have actually played halfway decent. And I think we should all be surprised by how well Geno Smith has played so far. There's no way. Seahawks plus 2.
I've said for a couple of weeks now, the Seahawks are going to steal a win or two this year at home. They I guess you could say they did that against the Broncos. I think they could do it here too. Now, the Arizona's backfield, they are shorthanded. We know about the injuries that they're dealing with. James Conner is now out, but Seattle did get run all over by Taysom Hill last week, and Rashad Penny being out hurts, but Arizona is at best, they're mediocre to me. And the 12th man, I think, is going to play a factor. I think Seattle may steal a win, but if not, heck, maybe Arizona wins 27-26. Seahawks +2. That's the play here.
You're also forgetting all the injuries that the Cardinals are dealing with.
Well, that's what I'm saying. They're very shorthanded. For weeks, we've talked about how Kyler Murray has to do it all. We're going to try that again. And even when he thought they played all right against the Eagles and they still couldn't win, I just don't see it happening here.
Well, talk about a horrible way of losing last week.
Yeah. Say that about a few teams. Browns were one of
kicking
those.
Kicking game all over again last week.
Yep, no, that is for sure. But I'm going to take Seattle +2, kind of another upset special in this one. But Hank is going to take Arizona -2 to win and cover in Seattle. And then, Nick, it's being dubbed the game of the year. It's the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs over there at Arrowhead, I should say. It's a Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson special on the NFL and CBS. Bills are a 2.5-point favorite in this game of the year.
So I was just doing some statistical lookup to see what the total number was on this game.
Oh, sure, the over/under. What is it?
And it's 54 points. And I was under 54 points.
Yeah, I would take the over.
Over under 54 points.
No, I think there are going to be points scored in this game for sure.
Sounds like a large number to me, but I don't know. I just have this feeling because the way the Chiefs came back, and obviously in that championship game, now everyone would say, well, how did he do it in 12 seconds or 7 seconds? I think it was 7 seconds with 3 timeouts and whatever. The Bills have shown some up and down-ish at the beginning of the season, losing that game to Miami. Now, the Chiefs were not off to a great start either, and now Patrick Mahomes has finally found his way, and Kelsey looked great last week. I think he had 3 touchdowns last week. The offense looks like it's finally coming together. The thing that's scary to me, though, is the Chiefs' defense. The Chiefs' defense is probably, I would say, one of the worst in football, probably. Right now, they can't defend anything. So it's going to be a matter of can KC match the offense to the amount that the defense is going to give up. I'm going to stick with the pick I made on the show. I'm going to take the Chiefs +2.5.
Okay, that's all fair. You know how we've spoken about how the team that gets the ball last, you want to be in that spot, and that might be the key. Well, I actually am looking for the start of this game to be the key, and I'm looking to see if Josh Allen and the Bills try and make a couple of deep, explosive throws early on, try and set the momentum here. And when I look at this game, I feel like the Bills need this game more than the Chiefs. I think they need it from a mental perspective.
Agreed.
The matchup from last year. I think they need this game more. I think Kansas City can afford to lose this game when you look at it. And Kansas City's been in a couple of close AFC West matchups at home. They've won them both, but they've been close. Their defense has always been a concern to me. I think this is a perfect spot for Josh Allen to, make some deep throws. I think this is going to be a pretty good scoring game, like 31-27. And I like the fact that this game came down a half a point from when we picked it on Wednesday. But my official pick here for this show, I'm going to take the Bills to win and cover 31-27 over the Chiefs. And Hank is also going to take the Bills -2.5.
I also want to say Stephon Diggs is going to be a key person in this game. If he can get open and he can catch those long, deep passes and put up 2-3 touchdowns from Allen, then the Chiefs are not going to be able to compete. But if they're able to keep Diggs down, this will be a close game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I'm curious the start. If Buffalo can get off to a fast early start, that might be something. How the Chiefs play catch up from the get-go, that could be a difference as well. But Buffalo needs this game more, in my opinion. I'm gonna go with them against the Chiefs in Kansas City. in this so-called game of the year. It's a Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, Melissa Stark special on Sunday Night Football on NBC. NFC East matchup. The Dallas Cowboys travel to Philadelphia to take on the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Eagles are favorites by 6.5.
I actually think this line is fair. I haven't said that in many weeks. A line is fair. The Eagles have looked great. Jalen Hurts looks amazing. That A.J. Brown connection looks amazing. The Cowboys... Everyone, and I'm hearing this all over TV, and I heard it on First Take that the Cowboys are going to. I heard Michael Irving crazy. The Cowboys have the Eagles where they want them, and they're going to get to Lincoln Stadium or whatever you call it, and they're going to completely upset. Can we like the breaks down a little bit? The Eagles are the better team in this matchup. Okay, they're the more offensive sound team. Without Dak, that team does not do well with Dallas. Okay, Cooper Rush has been great. Don't get me wrong. And I'm sure there's some discussion going on in Dallas that maybe they need to keep him on until he loses a game. I don't know if I agree with that. I think once Dak is healthy, you bring him back. But in this matchup, the Eagles are the better team. Take the cover.
Yeah, I agree the Eagles are the better team, but here's what I watch in this one. 4 of their starting offensive linemen are battling injuries. And we all know about the Dallas pass rush. They rank first in pressures, second in sacks. And Cooper Rush is doing enough for the Cowboys to win games. And Philly, as great as they are not going 17-0. Upset special. Not only do they take the Dallas plus 6.5, they win this game outright in an upset special on Sunday Night Football.
But would you say that if the Cowboys win this game, it's mostly defense?
Yes. That's exactly where I have it at. I think, and if Philly's battling if 4 of their offensive linemen are battling injuries, that is a golden shot for that pass rush. You know, Jalen Hurts, we know how mobile he is, how he can do stuff with his legs. He can run for scores. He can pass. I mean, he can do all that stuff. I mean, he's playing like an MVP candidate there in the NFC. But I mean, they struggled now look, great teams, they find ways to win all kinds of games. And that game last week in Arizona, they struggled with. It took a missed field goal at the end for them to win it. A win is a win. I get that. And great teams find a way to win games all around. But at some point, they're going to have a loss. I just think that's what it comes down to. And Dallas might be just getting them at a good time, even in Philadelphia. And 6.5 points is a lot. I mean, could you see this also coming down to a field goal game? I absolutely could. I don't know if the team can win by 2 scores. But
I wouldn't say 2 scores, but I would say that I think this is what I would call a fair line, because I just think the Eagles have a great offense. I know it's rare that you say Vegas gives a fair line on a game, because we've seen many of them, including this week, where the lines are completely messed up. I just think it's a fair line.
6 weeks into the season, I think Nick, you think you can count on one hand the amount of times that Nick has said that this year. It's been kind of nuts, but I like one. I like Dallas. I mean, I really do, and I'm getting 6.5 points. I mean, even if Philadelphia wins 27-24, that's a winner for me. So, but upset special, Dallas plus 6.5 on Sunday Night Football, and Hank will also take the Cowboys plus 6.5. As we wait all day for Sunday night, it's going to be a thriller out there in Philadelphia in the NFC East here between these two teams. And then we wrap up the week on Monday Night Football on ESPN. It's a Joe Buck, Troy Aikman, and Lisa Salter special as the Denver Broncos. Yes, folks, the Broncos are in prime time. I know.
Again.
Deal with it. It'll be fine. The Broncos travel to SoFi Stadium to take on the Chargers. And the Chargers, they are 4.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I think I'm with everybody who's a football fan. Can we stop with the Broncos? The Broncos are what they're going to be. And Russell Wilson, who now is saying after last week's game, I had a shoulder injury. I had to get a procedure done on my shoulder. You sure that wasn't an excuse that was built up after that horrible pass you made on Thursday Night Football, where you completely blew up a wide receiver where I forgot who was open on the right side. But it was a guy that threw his helmet down after the game. Yes. But Russell Wilson does not look like the same quarterback that he was in Seattle. He looks like a shell of himself. I mean, the hack is on. That's all I'll say at this point. Take the Chargers to cover. I don't like the Broncos right now.
And it is funny how the reports later on this week come out and say that Wilson's feeling a lot better as he gets ready for this game on Monday night. But look at this game, Nick. The Broncos are injured. The Chargers are injured. The Broncos don't have a good head coach. The Chargers don't have a good head coach. But
recipe for a great game, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel bad for Buck Aikman and Salters. But the Chargers, look at it. They are there for the taking if you really look at this matchup. But it still is too much for them, even for the Broncos. I'm taking the Chargers to win and cover on Monday night. And Hank will also grab the Chargers minus 4.5 to win to wrap up week 6. Well, this will be 6 weeks in, and we'll know a lot more. There's definitely going to be a lot to talk about in terms of the NFL, in terms of college on episode 29 of Game On, which comes your way this Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. We got so much to get into. Might be one of our longest shows, so we'll have to stay tuned for that. And, of course, you can catch Nick Morgasen on Empty the Bench on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, and, of course, on Beyond the Bench as well. So, Nick, thanks for filling in today. Good to have you back.
Oh, I'm so glad to have a voice again.
Absolutely. Folks, enjoy the football, college, pro. Enjoy all the sports action, and we will catch you on Tuesday for Game On, Thursday for Monty Moment College Football, and then right back here for our pro football picks next week.